Okay, so you're a data analyst, right? And let's be honest, data protection laws can feel, well, a little abstract, a little disconnected from your day-to-day. Today, we're going to change that. We're going to break down how those big, scary legal requirements actually turn into the practical things you do at your desk every single day. We're turning compliance from this headache into a real professional skill. Let's dive in. It's so easy to forget this, but this right here, this is the absolute heart of it all. We're not just looking at rows and columns in a spreadsheet, we are handling people's lives. And if we mess that up, real people get hurt. And yeah, companies get fined. This isn't just some text task, it's a huge human responsibility. So, that leads us to the big question, the central challenge for every single analyst out there, right? Our job is to find the story, to pull out the insights, to find the value hidden in all that data. But how? How do we do that without putting the privacy and safety of the people behind that data at risk? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to answer. All right, let's kick things off with the core principle here. In any professional setting, data safety isn't about memorizing laws like you're some kind of lawyer. Nope. It's about proving you get why those laws exist and making sure your actions show that understanding every single day. And here's the key to making it all simple. When you boil it down, pretty much every data protection law is asking you these four things. 1, did you have a legit, lawful reason to even use the data? 2, did you only use the absolute minimum you needed to get the job done? 3, did you handle it securely? And 4, did you share it respectfully and only with people who really needed to see it? Okay, and before we get any deeper, I've got to give you this super important disclaimer. This whole explainer is designed to give you a practical framework, right? It is not legal advice. Your first stop should always be your company's own internal policy and your data protection officer, your DPO. Think of them as your in-house experts. Okay, so now that we've got that foundation laid, let's take a look at the actual rules you're probably going to bump into in your day-to-day work, especially here in the UK. You can think of these as the rules of the road for data analysts. First up, the big one, UK GDPR. This is really the bedrock of everything. It basically says you can't just use someone's data for kicks. You need a specific legal reason for it, and that's what we call a lawful basis. And it also gives people really powerful rights over their own information, like the right to see it, fix it, or even ask for it to be deleted. Next up, we've got the Data Protection Act of 2018. Now, this is what officially brings GDPR into UK law, but it adds something super important for us, the need for appropriate security. What does that mean? It means your work has to be backed up by real, tangible things, like encryption and strict access controls, stuff you're probably interacting with every day. And finally, there's PECR. Now, this one's a bit more specialized. If your analysis involves anything to do with digital marketing or communications, we're talking app notifications, website cookies, those marketing email lists, PECR is the law that governs that whole space. It's like the specific rulebook for how your company talks to people online. Okay, theory's great, but let's make this really concrete. Imagine you're an analyst for a food delivery app. Let's call it Hungry Now. To deliver an order, what do you need? An address. The lawful basis for using that address? It's necessary to fulfill a contract. Simple. Now, what about reducing fraud? You might use something like a device fingerprint. The basis for that is legitimate interests. And what about those marketing text messages? For that, you absolutely need explicit consent. See how every purpose has to map back to a specific legal reason? All right, so we've covered the what, the laws. Now for the most important part, the how. What are the specific things you can do today, right at your keyboard, to actually put all this into practice? Let's build out your practical toolkit. So here it is, your practical day-to-day toolkit. Think of this as your workflow. First, you pseudonymize, swap out real names for IDs. Then, you minimize, only row the columns you absolutely need. You make sure you're working securely. You aggregate your results, so you're showing trends, not individual people. You follow your company's policy on data retention, how long you keep stuff. And finally, you document your key decisions. These 6 steps, this is your professional bread and butter right here. And here's a perfect example of the power of aggregation. Look at the left, raw driver GPS data. That's high risk, super personal. Now look at the right. It's an aggregated heat map showing delivery density, the crucial business insight. Where are we busiest? It's still there, but the individual driver's privacy is completely protected. Big difference, right? Okay. Let's take these tools and apply them to a really common scenario, one you might face, especially when you're starting out. This is where the theory hits the road. So a stakeholder comes over to your desk, they're working on a new project, and say something like, hey, can you just send me a quick export of all the raw GPS data for our drivers from last month? Now, on the surface, it sounds like a simple request, but those data privacy alarm bells in your head should be going off. So what's the professional way to handle this? Here's how you handle it. You break it down. First, you identify the risk. Continuous location data tied directly to a person's identity? That's extremely sensitive stuff. Second, you take action. And you don't just say no. That's key. You propose a safer alternative, like that aggregated heat map we just saw. You also make a quick note of the decision and maybe loop in your data protection officer. And the outcome? The stakeholder gets the insight they needed, and you protected everyone's privacy. That right there is professional maturity in action. Awesome. You've handled that request perfectly. But your job doesn't stop there. Your everyday habits, the little things you do without even thinking, are what really build a secure data culture for your whole team. Now, these might seem like small things, but trust me, they are so important. Think about your workspace. Always lock your screen when you step away. Only use approved, secure drives for your work, not your personal Dropbox. When you build reports, add a little privacy banner. And get in the habit of deleting old temporary files. And maybe most important of all, if something just feels a bit off, escalate it. These little habits are the building blocks of a trusted team. And here's another really powerful habit to get into. Anytime you get a request that involves using new data, just run this quick mental check. First, what personal data do we actually need here and why? Second, what's our lawful basis for using it and how long are we supposed to keep it? And third, who is going to see this data and are they going to see it in its raw form or aggregated? Just asking these 3 simple questions turns you into a gatekeeper for safe data use. Okay, so we've covered the principles, the laws, the actions, and the habits. Let's bring it all home. How do you actually talk about this stuff to prove you're competent, say in a job interview, or for your endpoint assessment? Right, so instead of just saying something vague like, oh yeah, I know GDPR, try a statement like this one. It's so much more powerful because it connects a specific action, pseudonymization, to a clear purpose, protecting identities. It proves you made a conscious technical choice to keep data safe while you were doing your analysis. Okay, let's build on that. This next statement shows you're not just careful, you're also proactive and you work well with your team. By saying you verified the lawful basis and checked the retention policies, you're showing you don't just blindly use data, you work within the rules and you collaborate to make sure everything's above board. And finally, let's wrap up that scenario from earlier. This statement is brilliant because it turns a no into a yes, but better. You didn't just block a risky request, you understood the risk, you managed the stakeholder, and you delivered a safer, smarter solution. This is what real problem solving and professionalism looks like. And in the end, that's really what all of this comes down to. Look, anyone can learn how to build a chart or a dashboard, but the truly valuable professionals, the ones who build amazing careers, are the ones who also build trust. Trust with their colleagues, with their company, and most importantly, with the real people whose data is in their hands.